Not all powers are good. In fact, some of them are a bit naff. Hey guys, MasakoX here. Now, I'm a pretty positive guy, and I don't tend to go off on one that much when it comes to things which I think aren't particularly good. Unless I can find a good enough reason, of course, in which case, it's about to get MaSplosive. Is that a thing? Can it be a thing? Ages ago, I did a video about what my favourite techniques in Dragonball were, in which I had a lot of fun making, so if you want to check that video out, you can do so up top. There are some attacks that I have seen over the years in various guises of Dragonball which I take personal umbrage with, and that I believe are some of the most useless, weird, confusing, and straight up bad techniques going within the entire franchise. Yes, some of these attacks aren't exactly the most well-known out there, but I really wanted to scrape the bottom of the barrel for these techniques, and give you offerings that you probably might not have heard of before in order to be different from the typical list that you often find on certain websites. Now I must say that these are my personal thoughts, and if you just so happen to like these attacks or so, then all the power to you, and I'm glad that you like them. But I can't fully escape the positive vibe, and so I'm going to offer a better alternative for each attack, instead of just downing on it, that could do a similar job, and will not be nearly as irritating or useless as the attack they are replacing. And no, the Para dance isn't on the list, because it actually could be useful. If it was allowed to be used to its fullest, it could cause a person to pass out due to exhaustion, or you could actually lead them to somewhere bad and then leave them there. Things go from there. They laid it on real thick like whole milk, remember? But before we begin, don't forget that we have a lot of good stuff over at masako.cc/store for you to buy for the holidays, including this designer Ranch and Papa, which is on sale until December 20. After that, it'll be gone, so act quickly, as it is available for only a limited time. Thank you for listening. Number 10. Super Kaioken. It's a filler attack. Good start, Masako. Well, it deserves to be known that it was a thing in the anime, and that it made absolutely no sense. Sometimes the anime filler provides something interesting, but in this case, it produced an attack which is impossible to pull off, even in Dragon Ball. Rage doesn't stack. Kaioken cannot be used whilst in Super Saiyan according to the original lore. It would also tear a normal person apart. Goku can only use it at all because his body was mostly spirit energy at the time, and Vegeta can sort of use it in the Zeno form because the fusion body has more integrity, I think. Also, the 2x multiplier that typical Kaioken gets is basically the same as Super Saiyan 2 if you stack it with Super Saiyan, so just use that. Once Goku got Super Saiyan 2, he never used it again. Bye. Number 9. Downburst. Future Gohan. Downburst was used by Gohan to dazzle androids 17 and 18, so why not use Solar Flare? Granted, this is meant to be a more destructive interpretation of the move, but it didn't work against the androids, and it led to future Gohan being turned into Swiss cheese, as you know. Gohan didn't have much of a chance though, because he only had one arm to use instead of the two that Solar Flare requires, but Gohan's a smart cookie. He could have adapted that attack to suit his needs. Maybe he would have had his hand down here instead, or up top, or something like that, I don't know. Either way, Downburst's intended use case wasn't a good one, so oops. Number 8. Continuous Ki Blasts. Don't have any other ideas in a crisis? Just throw loads of ki at the problem, that'll solve it, right? Nope. You see, this being used in the show out of desperation or to keep a baddie down, and it never works. Not only that, but you use up loads of energy in the process. Just stick to the one single attack or more focused moves. This barrage is a little unnecessary, but at least it looks neat for the camera. Number 7. Multiform technique. Tenshinhan Cell. Yes, I know this one's predictable, but hear me out. It's about to be made even more redundant. And I'm throwing Triform in here too, which is what Piccolo and Krillin used during the Saiyan saga, them learning the basics of the multiform. It halves and halves again your power with each set of copies that you make. So for example, if you ultimately had 8 copies, including yourself, then your overall power for each individual copy would just be 1/8 of your total power. They don't gain power or are straight up copies. It's mainly used for, like, double team or something like that, or to confuse people, or if you're really lazy. It's not a tangible attack to use for straight up melee. You have to be clever. Now, why did I say it was going to become even more irrelevant? Well, with the manga, spoilers until this time, the Ardratians offer Vegeta the chance to learn spirit control, and then in turn, the opportunity to perfect it into maybe making copies of themselves. We don't know how this works specifically yet, but if this allows you to make perfect copies of yourself, then this could be a major disruptor. Number 6, beautiful flying rose attack, Coroni. Yes, I am including a filler character from the Cell games. It was meant for gags, yes, but he was still a fighter of sorts, which in theory means that he should have had some skills, especially being part of the champion's entourage for what was one of the most important matches on the planet at that time. Not to mention, it's also really convoluted. It involves the user jumping into the air and then back down again, just like a big jump, and then rushing the opponent. Why jump up then? Just rush. To look beautiful and dazzle the opponent, maybe? Well, it didn't impress Cell at all. He had his eyes set squarely on Goku. But in the end, it is there to just look funny. But in terms of efficacy, nothing for me. Which move then would have been better for Coroni to use? Easy. Nam's cross-arm dive. That is much more potent, and was used on Goku during the 21st tournament, and it almost took out Goku. But not quite, because main character. It's meant to knock a person out for 10 days, but for Goku, it was more like 10 seconds. Still though, it was a more impressive and striking attack than what Coroni did. Number 5, Quaterpose Suit in the manga. Yeah, Quaterpose. I love that guy. His inclusion in the anime was one of those things that brought some light relief during the Tournament of Power saga, the really long saga. And also against some of the more serious characters. It was also one of the best examples of how suits can make people more powerful, just like in my What If Bulma Train Like Goku series. Not only that, but it had different modes, which could adapt to certain scenarios. Cool! Shame that Toyotaro didn't include that. At all. Yeah, Quaterpose in the manga is out within seconds after being thrown out by Vegeta. You know, same guy in the anime, but different results. He was gone just like that. That suit did nothing for him, and thusly you could describe it as being worse. A suit that offers you nothing that was meant to aid you in battle? That could be seen as bad. It might have been meant to have different mode changes, but Toyotaro chose not to include them. Instead, choosing to just speed through the tournament and just get it over with. Maybe I'll make a video about why that arc in the manga's bad. But yeah, the anime version is much better with modes that actually were handy and actually did something to the Team Universe 7 team like Android 18 and base form Vegeta. In fact, his battles with Vegeta were really interesting, and had it not been for a cheap trip-up, he could have lasted a little longer against Vegeta. It would have been really, really interesting. Number 4, Super Speed Dash, Tapka. I love speedy characters, and in theory, this power should suit me down to the ground. But before I would know it, I would be on the ground, because once you've used this technique once, that's it. Your stamina's gone. Tapka in the Otherworld tournament showed just that, and in theory impressed all that saw it because of his magnificent speed. But he didn't anticipate or think that using it for that long would end up with him being unable to continue. Yeah, good for sporting events perhaps, but for battling, probably not. A better alternative would have been to just resort to the tried and tested after-image technique, which any Dragon Ball character worth their weight in salt would be able to pull off and probably know. And it's one of those visual cues that is synonymous with the show. Sorry, Tapka, you rushed it. Number 3, Ultra Super Saiyan. Now, I remember that in my top 10 Dragon Ball attacks video that I said I wouldn't count transformations as a technique or being part of the list because it's its own thing. But for this list, I would like to include it because it is the worst example of a tried and tested power-up, and I'm sure that you would agree that it offers nothing good other than for a cool visual in the series, and in some cases fan service if your name is Caulifla. The long or the short of it is, yes, you do become stronger than you are in Grade 2 Super Saiyan, but your speed? Nah, that's probably worse than just regular vanilla Super Saiyan. There is a mismatch in terms of speed and power, which means that if you can't hit your opponent, then you're just left like a sitting duck, expending energy for no reason, trying to dodge a speedier rival. This is pretty egregious for me, because I am the kind of person who builds in certain games speedy characters, and to see a power where you stick everything in power and nothing else, min-maxing for those in the know, it's left with nothing to show other than something to claim that you can do. You know, it's just there. Goku dismissed it, and when Vegeta saw it in Super when Trunks used it, albeit as a trick and a ploy, he just laughed it off. It has no place within Dragon Ball anymore, other than as a rites of passage to full power Super Saiyan. Basically, it's for whenever you want to do a Broly impression. A maxed out Super Saiyan Grade 2 would be better in theory. Even Super Saiyan 3 would be better, and I think that's not great. Why isn't it on this list? Well, this was even worse. Number 2, Smelly Finger, Bacterian. A technique which can be achieved when one doesn't have a bath. Yes, of course, I understand that this is meant to be the most subversive technique anywhere and show the power of the sense of smell. I mean, Krillin was able to use it against Majora in the Tournament of Power. It has got something going for it. It's an attack which involves basically something pretty gross and a finger. No, it's not a Dodon Ray or a special beam cannon. It's just resorting to something which has come about from not washing. In fact, you can consider all of Bacterian's moves for this category, because they're not really attacks. All of the previous attacks that I've mentioned required some kind of skill or concentration to pull off. The only concentration that Bacterian has to offer is of the smell. You want to know something else? Bacterian was a cook before taking up martial arts. Think about that. And his power level of 110 is only due to his aroma. He is the Samson of the Dragon world. Put him in the shower, he's powerless. Number 1, Golden Frieza, before meditation. Yes, the resulting power is pretty mighty and can be acquired relatively quickly if you're a fast person, but the end result is something that we saw before back in the Namek saga. Golden Frieza is a very iconic looking character and a form, and when perfected, it can be very useful, but when we first see it, it's just the same thing as 100% Final Form Frieza. It offers nothing power-wise to me. In Resurrection F, it was already a pretty tepid affair, made even more so during the anime version of it, and despite the pretty decent visuals in the movie, the power's intended purpose was to outmatch Goku and Vegeta's powers, and to stick it to them, and it couldn't even do that. Super Saiyan Blue was still more powerful. In fact, Frieza never had the upper hand really throughout the entirety of the movie. He only got the win through cheating, not even in the golden form either. It suffered the same trouble as in Z, and it left him vulnerable, and him having learnt nothing. Now okay, narratively speaking, it's a cute little parody of Super Saiyan. Oh, you can turn gold, well, so can I. But it's a rehash that becomes a rehash of a rehash in Dragon Ball Super, and was clearly a cheap way to bring Frieza back to relevance, and of course to sell more toys. Now you might remember I said before meditation version of Golden Frieza. There is a reason for that, and that is a very important signifier. It's on this list before Frieza actually decided to knuckle down and actually learn how to use the power, to which the transformation could then be described as true Golden Frieza. Something we saw in episode 95 of Super, which was a tour de force. It looked much more polished, and Frieza exuded more justifiable confidence, because no stamina drain. I think in Resurrection F, having a 5th form Frieza would have been more interesting, and then show off Golden Frieza for the Tournament of Power, as a real progression for the character. Golden Vanilla Frieza? Sorry, you're just useless. So there you go. These were my least favourite attacks, powers, techniques, whatnot, within Dragon Ball. Some of these might have been contentious, but I feel that these things really underperformed or were not thought through well enough for their intended purposes. If you don't agree, then that's okay, because I want to hear from you. What did you guys think? What are your least favourite attacks? Leave a comment below, and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later.